Well, hello, and welcome to part 2 of our safari video slideshow. We're excited to share with you more pictures from our safari. Now, if you saw part 1, you saw photos of the Ngorongoro crater, where zebras and flamingos and other beasts flock together at water's edge. Well, now we'll move to the Serengeti, a rolling plain with woodlands and grasslands and a few swamps. Here's an acacia forest, which are beautiful, and so we enjoyed them. And so did the giraffes, whose favorite food is tender new acacia shoots. The Serengeti is one of the world's best places to see lions, and it did not disappoint. Here are some of our first stays in the Serengeti National Park. And here's the Nasakia tent camp, which is one of these several camps set up out in the safari areas. What happens is these camps set up temporarily for several months to be there, following the wildebeest migration between the Serengeti and Kenya's Masai Mara area. Here's Hank and I at the Nasakia camp. We traveled with a group that Hank put together. He's an Africophile who's done research in primates and been a tour guide in Africa for many years. So it was a great experience, and he's a great guy. And the group we traveled with was terrific. There were 12 of us in all, plus our guides, all folks from the Pacific Northwest that Hank and his son had connections with. Our lead guide through the Serengeti was Salim, and Hank had worked with his father, Msafiri, for several years and developed a lifelong friendship. So Msafiri came along too. Great folks, and things went smoothly throughout. The Serengeti supports many elephants, and we saw them regularly across the grassy plains. Bird watching was great too. Here's a gray-backed fiscal and some African parakeets. One morning, we got up early and left the Nasakia camp by sunrise to get out and go ballooning. It was interesting watching them start to set up the balloons, and as we climbed in with the basket on its side, we were dragged along the ground. This is very bumpy till the balloon finally got airborne, but then things smoothed out, and it was a beautiful view of the plains below us. Our group was divided into 2 balloons, and we had our French captain to lead us across the Serengeti. At one point, we managed to steer over a group of tourists watching a pride of lions and got to look over their shoulder. Otherwise, enjoyed a calm ride over the plains and over the wildlife. We floated pretty quietly, although silence alternated with blasts from the fire pots. We finally came down after more than an hour, and as we touched down, there was celebratory champagne. A glass of champagne is traditional among balloonists for a safe ride. When we settled at our landing site, we were among another huge herd of wildebeest. The wildebeest migration is one of the wonders of the Serengeti, and our visit was timed around being here in March. It's shortly after the wildebeest birthing time, and this in turn brings predators such as the lions. As for the wildebeest, they have their babies all at the same time, which is a survival strategy. The predators can take the little ones, but there are only so many, and they can't take them all. We moved on to another tent camp. This one was called Osopuku, and again featured a central tent. And here's a shot of the individual and sleeping tents that each of us have as our rooms. Since the camps are set in the grasslands out here in the Serengeti, certainly the camps are subject to predators, elephants and other dangerous beasts wandering around or through the camp. So after dark, we weren't allowed to travel alone, even between our rooms and the main dining tent. On the staff at Osopuku, they have a native Maasai warrior, Kinga, who was one of the guides and guards in the camp. Around the campfire, Kinga shared captivating stories about facing off lions and such. Not all of them believable, but it was another highlight of the journey. And here we are again, headed out on safari and we came across this crowned crane. Oh, a couple of crowned cranes. Beautiful birds, big tall things. And then we got to see a grand gazelle with a couple of guinea fowl there in front of it. And then we came across the hippopont, and then an impala, the beauty that Chevrolet named its car after. We found a pride of lions on this set of rocks, and in particular there were a couple of mama lions sleeping there with their cubs, until a daddy lion, a big male, came along at the base of the rock. The mothers went on alert, and as you can see here, she's checking, and she went down to make sure that he didn't come up any further. Great photo op and some cute cubs. We moved on across the Serengeti and found a rare sight. One of the big 5 animals in Africa is the leopard. And we're thrilled we got to see this guy. He was satiated. You can see that he's just zonked out, laying up in this tree. Not a care in the world, and here's why. He has a baby wildebeest stored up in the tree with him, and he's been gorging on his kill from last night. Well, heading back to some elephants. We were out across the Serengeti, and we were treated several times to some wonderful elephant viewing. Here's some video.
I'm going to go with the boy on that. It's subtle. You have to really look for it on that.
He's going to come visit us. Maybe he'll attack us. It's an action.
Now, it was fun to see ostriches in the wild. I'm not sure I expected to see any of those here in Africa, but they were definitely around, and we saw them from time to time. Now, there are some rock outcroppings on the Serengeti in the savannah. Think about the terrain from The Lion King. And one of the cricketers on the rocks are these little gopher-looking things called a hyrax, a rock hyrax. And atop this rock, there's some big pride of lions. You can't see them up there under the trees, but here's one you can see. This is one of our favorite lions, a guy who was so satiated he was food drunk, passed out with a huge belly and unbothered by the safari vehicles that found him and surrounded him. We passed by some topi, a type of antelope that lives out here as well, so we got to cross that species off our live list. Then we moved on. One of the side activities that Hank and Salim arranged was a visit to a school. They wanted to make sure we saw some of the people in that area of Tanzania. The kids were so very interested to see us white people stop by and say hello. It was time to raise a glass to the Serengeti and to Tanzania, a South African wine, of course. And so we said goodbye to our guides at this little airstrip out on the plain, and we jumped into an airplane to fly to Rwanda, our next stop. Here's the group looking happy to be moving on. Of course, we enjoyed the Serengeti very much, but ready to see what's next. We flew into the capital of Kigali, and one of our first stops was at the Rwanda Genocide Museum. It was very moving and sad, but also heartening to see how far the country has come since those days just 30 years ago. The country is lush and green and clean, including the big city. We then drove into the mountains and checked into the Mountain Gorilla Lodge for a highlight of the safari. There was African dancing and music there, and we had a chance to go into the local village and buy some beautiful African cloth. The patterns are so great. I've used them here as a background to these slides. At the lodge was an example of some of the interesting brands you run into when you travel as well. From the lodge, we took 2 day trips into the mountains. One of them was to see golden monkeys, a rare and endangered species that lives just here in the mountains and bamboo forests of Central East Africa. We hiked in to find them into an area where they're protected, part of a national park. The Golden Monkey Troop moved through the bamboo jungles, and we did our very best to follow and get a picture or two while they went. It wasn't easy because they were constantly moving, but occasionally they did set up on a bamboo stick and pose for a moment anyway. And here we are with our guide for that hike. We were treated to a culture walk in the village, including a demonstration of some local instruments by some local players. Take a listen. And here's a beekeeper who showed us these beehives. We also visited the Ellen DeGeneres campus of the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund. Now Ellen, unknown to me before this trip, was also here in Rwanda years ago and was taken by the efforts to save the gorillas, and so she developed the center honoring Dian Fossey's work with the gorillas. Finally, we did the hike. It was at about an hour and a half into the mountainside jungle to find a troop of gorillas. It was pretty amazing to be very much up close and personal with these gorillas, to see them in person. Now, not all of these photos are mine, but they're all from our group. We got to spend about an hour in contact with the gorillas. After the hike back out, we said thank you to our guides, and it was here in Rwanda that we said goodbye to all of the folks we had been traveling with over the past 2 weeks. One of our group, Greg, stayed the extra night with us in Kigali, and we shared a lovely dinner. And then we woke up the next morning to fly back out to Nairobi again. Here's our selfies at the airport as we cleared customs and security in Rwanda. And this is a good place to end for now. Thanks for coming along on this part of our Africa adventure.